This training here is called How to Evaluate an Investment Property, right? So really, it kind of leans into the thought of you make money when you buy, which is true. Before I got into real estate investing, when I used to hear that, I really didn't understand what that meant. But definitely now I understand what that means, that you make money when you buy, meaning that what you pay for the property, what you buy it for, is going to set you up for success when it's time to sell the property. When it's time to sell, when it's time to refinance, anything you want to do when you're trying to exit that property and exit that investment. What you do from the buying standpoint puts you in a great position. So that's extremely important. So that's what we want to talk about, how to evaluate an investment property. And I'm glad got Sweetie on here because she'll get to see it from a standpoint. She's a real estate agent, and she'll get to see it from that standpoint. So I'm going to basically kind of go over a process, and I'm going to do it from the average individual who's not a real estate agent, and then, all the way up to somebody that, is a real estate agent that has access to the MLS. So, a real estate agent that has access to the MLS can invest themselves, or they can help other people find properties, which, a lot of real estate agents do. That's really kind of how I fell into investing. I was helping a client of mine, and I was helping find all these good deals. And I'm like, shoot, man, I wish I had the money to buy the property. And I was thinking too much into it. I was thinking too hard about it, right? He was buying several properties. I'm like, how do I buy all these properties? And I'm like, I just need one, right? And so I got in position to buy my first property. And then the first property, number one, turned into two turned into four turned into eight, and the rest is history, right? So, we see the deals as real estate agents. So I definitely want people that are licensed real estate agents to be able to look at it from a different point of view, other than just helping your client secure property, other than just helping your client to find a deal. We have to be looking at these opportunities for ourselves as well. So I'm going to go over property, as a matter of fact, that one of our students just acquired. I'll start here. This property at 2211 2nd Street in Gastonia, North Carolina, just the suburbs right outside of Charlotte. It's 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, 1,199 square feet. So it's a smaller property. And I always encourage, like, maybe for your first opportunity, to start with a small property. When I say a small property, something that's maybe 1,600 square feet and smaller. That's a great place to start, right? So this is a small one. My one of our students just closed on this last week. He went out there yesterday with today actually, with the contractor, and running all the numbers and all that good stuff. So they're about to start on that project here. I would imagine they should be finished in about 3 months. So it'll look totally different than this. So one thing that I always do when I identify a property, even just from my computer, one of the first things I like to do is do what's called a street view. So I'll go to Google to do a street view. And Google, this just kind of gives me a lay of the land to get a general idea of the surrounding area, right? I want to make sure there's nothing that's too out of place. I want to make sure that it's not like a commercial area right next door, anything like that. Because some things I can see online and I'll know right away that I'm not going to purchase this property. So I like to do a Google Street View, pan around and kind of see what's going on, see if there's any activity around here. So this one, which I thought was really good, is there's a nice property right across the street. That's always a key. So it looks like this property here was recently built. So that's huge. That lets you know that, hey, there's been some development and some building in that general area, and there are nice properties nearby. So that always helps with the value of your property. So I like seeing this. When I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, that's a great sign. So this just kind of gives me a lay of the land, just kind of going up and down the street. The house next door, it's a decent little house. It ain't nothing. It's well maintained, right? It doesn't probably wasn't renovated, but it's well maintained. They got some landscaping stuff going on here. They you can see some pride of ownership. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, to see that, people nearby are taking care of their property. And the cool thing about this one, this was on a little cul-de-sac. So that's always a plus when you got a property where there's not heavy traffic, right? And so those are some of the first things that I do. I go to Google Street View just to get a lay of the land. So lay of the land, kind of looking around. So looking at this one, this looks decent enough. The area is decent enough. So I'll say, hey, okay, now that the area looks good, let me go back to Zillow. And so Zillow would be a good tool for someone to use who doesn't have access to the MLS, who's not working with a real estate agent. Now, what I say is, I would always recommend somebody to work with a real estate agent, right? Because a real estate agent has experience, a real estate agent knows the area, a real estate agent, has contacts and resources. And so, we have real estate agents right here in our network and in our program. But if you decide to go it alone, Zillow right here is a good place to start, right? So Zillow will, has the 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. So kind of, gives you the attributes of the property. And it has this rough zestimate here. And one thing that, I want you to take notice is Zillow is kind of giving it a rough estimate of 156 in its current condition, right? Zillow doesn't 100% know its current condition, whether it needs renovation or whether it's been renovated because it hasn't been on the open market, so they're doing their best guesstimate on what it is. But this is a decent place to start. So if you start on Zillow here and that's all you have access to, what you want to do is scroll down on Zillow, and you want to go down to this area right here where it says comparable homes. Comparable homes. This is where you want to go when you're on Zillow. So it'll show you similar properties that have similar attributes that have sold recently. So one good thing, I like this when I see this house sold for 213, and it's smaller than the subject property. It's 824 square feet, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, and we got 1,199 square feet. So that's always a plus to kind of see this value compared to, saying this 156 here. So you can use this as a great baseline. And then it kind of shows you as well on the map how far this is away from you. So it's like, pretty close. Number 2, pretty close. And this is the rental property. But for now, we're just going to look at properties that have sold recently. So I'm going to click on this property, kind of get an idea of what it looks like. So this property has been renovated and it closed. It's always a good thing. So I would go in here, check out the pictures. Nice renovation, nice shaker cabinets, granite countertops, stainless steel, LVP flooring, nice painted. So this looks like a nice renovation here. New water heater, vinyl siding. So this is comparable to a flip that I would do, right? And so this has a little lay of the inside, the interior, the square footage and things of that nature, kind of layout. So that's good. So this is a really, really a good comp here. So this shows you like, okay, even if you wanted to be just a little conservative and say, okay, this one sold for 213, let's put a value on this at 200,000, right? So just to be conservative. What I mean by that is we know that this particular property, we know that it's sold for, we know that property right there, it's sold for 213,000. But what I do is I put a little bit of buffer in there to play it safe, and I say, hey, it sold for 200,000. Just the, one thing that I've learned, just over the time when you're dealing with renovations and flipping and all that stuff, it's important to be a little conservative with your numbers. Like, there's no benefit to you as an investor to be aggressive with your numbers. Like, if you're overshooting, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? You don't want to overshoot. Like, some investors, kind of, to be honest, if you look at this, and this property is 824 square feet and it's 213, and this property is 1,199 square feet. If you're talking about price per square footage, you would almost put this estimate up at, if this is 213, then, let's kind of do some quick math here. So we got 213,000 divided by 824. So $258 a square foot. And if we multiply our property by that times, I think it's 1199. We'd say, somebody would say, oh, if that property is worth $258 a square foot, mine is the same, and so this property is worth 309. That's not the case, right? So be conservative. I give it a ballpark figure at the most. I would say, just to be safe, at the most, I feel like it could probably sell for that list price between 210 and 220, but I'm leaning on 200 as a guideline, right? If I get 200, then that will be the number that I was expecting. So anything I get above that is icing on the cake. So I'm using that as a base guideline to play it safe. So remember that. So like I said, Zillow is a great place to start for someone. If you're not using a real estate agent, it's a good place for you to start. It'll give you the basic information, but I encourage you to use a real estate agent. If you don't want to use a real estate agent and you want to kind of get a little deeper, I advise you to get this program. And if you do go that route, let me know, because I have a discount code where you can get this software for cheaper. This is called PropStream, right? And PropStream, one thing I do like about PropStream includes properties that have sold outside of the MLS. So that's really cool. So you can get a bigger picture of kind of what's going on. And you see, basic PropStream, you go in, you put the address in, and it'll populate all the recent sales over the last, 15 years or more, right? But I just basically try to look at the most recent sales. And so you got properties that have sold, for as high as like $400,000. You got 270, so it gives it a rough estimate of 217, very close to what we already said, from the Zillow standpoint, very close to that. We said, somewhere 213 or whatever. That's like the number we got there. And so PropStream kind of gives you that same general valuation, about $4,000 more. It says 217, right? So this is all giving you a baseline. This is giving you a baseline of what the property is probably worth, right? So we know that 217 here, 213. So if we kind of want to land in the middle, to play it safe, we can basically, say between 217, we say 215. You want to say 215 for the sake of this, we can do that. Okay. Then you have individual. If you are a real estate agent, or if you have a real estate agent that's working for you, real estate agent can go into the MLS, right? And with the MLS, you can get more granular, you can get more detail, you can kind of, change the time frame of when things sold. You can, put in, what year the property will be built and so forth. So I'll just let you kind of see this right quick. So I plugged in some criteria. You want to go within, no more than about 200 to 300 square feet each way. So our property is 1,200 square feet. So I just tightened it up right here at 1,300. So I went from 800 to 1,300 square feet, built 1980 or less, and within 2 miles of the subject property, and a single family home, and sales within the last what's that? That's about 9 months, right? So you can even tighten that up if we don't get a lot of property. That's probably why I went out some. But I'll even go some as short as 90 days, but you don't get too many. So anywhere between 6 months and a year is okay. But if you get a lot of properties and you want to tighten it up, go 90 days. But for the sake of this one, we're going to go within the last 240 days, right? And so this will kind of give you the results here, kind of what's out there, what's sold. This property sold, oh, it's actually on the market. This property is on the market. So you look at this one here, kind of see, there's some renovations in there. Nice renovation. Yep, that's decent. Nice yard. Yep. So that's a decent renovation. They have it listed for $240,000. It's been on the market for 19 days, which is not a long time. So that gives you an idea kind of what's out there. Um, you look at what else out there. Another property, 239, and this one doesn't have any renovations. This one I think is a little kind of overpriced. This one is closed. This one is about 60 square feet bigger than our subject. It is brick, which is good, has some value. You're looking at this picture that the roof doesn't even look that newer. So, that kind of tells you like, hey, your property would be fully renovated. But this one has some renovation and it looked like it was maybe updated. But these are like the original cabinets, like they painted them and so forth. So this is not even a full blown renovation. It sold for 245. This is another property in the general area. Look at this one. Wow. This property here is no renovations at all. It sold for 220. How many days was it on the market? Wow, it was only on the market 7 days. Somebody must really wanted that home. So 220. But all of this is encouraging news for me to see that, hey, this property right here wasn't even fully renovated and it sold for 220. Basically the same attributes as the subject property, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, 1,100 square feet. Let's see what else. Oh, this is a super small property. Holy smokes. This property is 1 bedroom, 1 bath. This one wouldn't really count, but this, kind of something that you can get a general idea, renovate it. 1 bedroom, 541 square feet. It sold for 199. So that's kind of letting you know that there is a market there. This is probably a decent renovation. Let's see. Yep, this is a decent renovation. I wouldn't even say this is a full blown renovation. These are older tile floors. These might be laminate or original hardwood. It's hard to tell, but this is not even a full blown renovation. And that one sold for 220. So, that tells me that my low number of 200 is relatively safe, and I probably can go upwards if I get lucky, 220, 225 or more, right? And so a real estate agent can get more granular and kind of, let you see all the numbers and then give you this synopsis, give you this information to show you like, hey, properties are selling for, this range or whatever in certain condition, right? So that's a good thing. So then we'll just double back. So this is from, real estate agent having access to the MLS. We talked about Zillow, if you kind of trying to just get a general idea, and then we talk about PropStream is something that you can, and then there's some more that you can do with PropStream as well. But this is a good start to understand the value of the property. So now that we know that, like I said, I'm going to use 200 as a baseline value on the property. I'm going to use 200 as a baseline value, right? So Any questions so far before I go to the next part?
Yeah, I have a question, Sean.
Okay.
For that system, PropStream, does that cover the entire US or just a specific like state um or city?
No, that was a great question. And that's another good thing. It covers the entire US. It's very robust. I use it a lot because you can get access to properties, that are behind on payments. Like you can find deals on there as well. So it's really sophisticated. You can do a lot with it. But yes, the answer to your question, it covers the entire United States. Cool. So, all right. So we basically have said that we're going to go with a value in the range of 200 right now. You might be saying, well, Sean, we saw sales for 220. We saw sales for 225. We saw sales for 240. But I want you to play it safe and conservative. I want you to use 200 as your baseline number. So we're going to use 200 as our baseline number. And anytime we're looking at a property, um, we're never going to pay more than 70 cents on the dollar, 70% of the value. And you have a term that's used in real estate investing. ARV is the after repaired value. Like when you're going to be talking to lenders, when you're going to be talking to other investors or whatever, you'll hear that a lot. After repaired value. After repaired value is basically, what the house is worth if it was fixed up totally, right? So we're looking at 200 is kind of like the base guideline. Well, we should never pay more than 70 cents on a dollar or 70% of the ARV. So if we're talking about $200,000, 200,000 times 70%, 0.70, we should pay no more than 140,000 for this house. And to be honest, in a market like we're in now where things are just, there's a lot more inventory, you really want to go lower than that. But this is like no more. This is the top. The top you should pay is 140, right? But really, looking at this house, looking at the numbers, if we want to use 200 as our number in this market for the current repairs, I would say that we need to be looking at no more than 60 cents on the dollar in this market here. So 70% is the most, right? If the house just needed just a few repairs, then 140, will get it done because we might be able to, put like 25 into it or whatever and turn around and sell it for $200,000. But the house is going to need more work. We're going to have to get it a lot cheaper. So in this market, I would be using 60% of the ARV as the guideline. So listen, like I said, 70% is the most. That's kind of like the guideline. And the reason why I say 70% because most lenders, when you're going to get loans on these properties, and that'll be a whole nother training. But when you're going to get loans on these properties, most the lenders only going to loan up to 70% of the ARV. So they're only going to lend you up to 70%. So that's kind of like the max they're going to lend you. So you want to know that ahead of time. But for this instance and for like this particular market, you don't want to be paying more than uh, 60 cents on the dollar. So we say 200,000 times points. So 120 is, would be kind of like, what we would be looking for to pay on this property. Now, on this property here, uh, uh, one of our students, he actually got it at a good deal. We helped him get it at a good deal. He paid 80,000, right? So paid 80,000 for this property here. And so it's going to need a major renovation, right? But 80,000, think about it. If you just did some basic math, we're talking about $200,000. That's the safe number. And it's probably going to sell for a little bit more, but $200,000 minus $80,000. That's $120,000. So right there, there's like $120,000 to work with before, you kind of factor in the repairs and closing costs and commissions and things of that nature. Another thing that is a huge benefit for real estate agents is real estate agents, you don't have to pay anybody else a listing commission. You can list it yourself. So, that if you just really think about it on a $200,000 house, and let's just say the average commission was 3%, that's 6 grand that you save right there. So that goes right to your bottom line. So that's always good. But like I said, he got this house for $80,000. The renovation on it is probably going to be about $60,000. And I would say probably just to um, be conservative. I always say that the value is lower. Be conservative on the value, and I always estimate the repairs are higher. So I'm going to say the repairs are going to be $70,000. So we talking about 80,000 for the purchase plus 70,000 for the repairs. That's 150,000. And the sales price, conservative sales price, is $200,000, right? So that's a $50,000 profit. Then you want to factor in, the commission. So commissions, you might say, you might pay, if you're not a real estate agent, you might pay anywhere from 3 to 6%, for the sale of the property. So we'll just use the a higher number. We'll say $200,000 sales price times 0.06. That's $12,000 if you have to pay 6%. I'm just using that as an example. So $12,000 for commission, and then closing costs, probably about another. We got 12 plus another $3,000. And you got holding costs. If you got a loan on here on this property, it's probably going to be in the neighborhood, on the high side, I would say probably about $1,500 a month, holding costs. So probably from the time you get this property to the time you sell it, to be super smart about this, I would say factor in 6 months. So we already got 15,000. We got the 6% commission, 3,000 closing costs, and we got holding costs of 6 months at $1,500. Times six, 9,000 plus what we have, $15,000 on there. So all in, that's kind of like our what we paying out, our closing costs, our holding costs, and our initial profit was 50,000. So you take this 24,000, all the closing costs, holding costs, sales costs from the 50,000 minus 50,000, and that gives you a profit of about $26,000. That's not bad at all. That's really a great profit, and that's very doable. So think about it. If it sells for more than $200,000, this number is going to go up. And truth be told, I think the property would probably sell for closer to 215 or something like that. So that's the basis of how you evaluate a property. The gist of it is you never want to pay more than 70% on the dollar. That's like the max, right? And in this market, you want to be trending downward 60%, 50%. If you can get a property at 50 cents on the dollar, that's going to help you with your margins like crazy. Like I said, we got this one for $80,000. It's going to need a good amount of work, but at the end of the day, my our student, he's going to walk away with somewhere in the neighborhood, I would say between 25 and $35,000. So I hope that made sense. Any questions on this? See.
How did y'all identify this particular property? Did you help the person find it, or they were able to find it themselves?
Yeah, yeah. So, once you're in this business and you around this business a lot and people understand that you're an investor, people are going to start bringing you deals. So a wholesaler bought this deal to me. And you know, I said, man, this will be a good opportunity for one of our students. And so, yeah, somebody brought it to me. So you'll definitely start getting more opportunities as you're plugged into the group, and as you know, get to know more people, and as you're starting to do more deals, people are going to bring you deals. I mean, like, people bring me deals daily. So, yeah, I helped them identify this one here.
Oh, Daryl had a question about the prop stream
Oh,
in the chat.
let me see if I can see this chat here. Okay, let's see. PropStream is a good question. PropStream is a month to month subscription. Month to month subscription. So definitely, if you are interested in it, let me know, because I got a discount code, and I think that, you know, I'll get some type of little affiliate, you know, if you end up going forward with it. But it's well worth it. I've been using it for years. It's a lot of information. You can do a ton with it. Like you said, you can look all over the United States. You can look at pre foreclosures. You can look what's on the MLS, bank owned property, cash buyers, properties with liens on them, vacant property, high equity. This is a beast right here, you know, and it's affordable. I think it's about $100 a month, something like that. I've been using it for years though. Let me see. Rodney question. What are all the costs mentioned? Closing costs, housing costs, sales costs. What else? Um, that that is that's basically it. You know, as far as cost is concerned, you know, there might be some incidentals, but you have your basic holding costs. You're going to have your closing costs. You know, that's at closing when it's time to sell. You know, you got to pay your deed stamps and so forth. Holding costs is if you got a loan and so forth. And something to think about, which, you know, a lot of people don't think about. Yeah, I guess that is another thing to add. And I just kind of wrap it up. So if I kind of break it down, holding costs also would include landscaping, right? If it's the summer months or the spring months, fall months, any time other than winter, that grass is going to be growing, right? So you got to get the grass cut about every 2 weeks or whatever. You got to get the utilities turned on. So, you know, that's a couple of $100 a month or what have you. So those are some things just to keep in mind. You're going to have to pay for landscaping. You're going to have to pay for utilities, and you're going to have it, get it insured, right? You know, probably to get a property like this insured is probably going to be about about $1,200 a year, because it's an investment property, you know, so somewhere in that range. The good thing about it is once you you know, sell it within 6 months, you'll get half of that premium back. So you'll get refunded some of that money. You know, sometimes you got insurance companies, depending on who you work with, they don't allow you to get refunds. But, you know, I encourage you to work with companies that allow you to get refunds. And so I have access to companies that can you know, do that for you.
So if you're serious about building wealth through real estate, check out my website. It's Skills Up, Sean K. Langston. Skills Up with Sean K. Langston. Also, check out my YouTube channel, where I'll be posting new content every single week. Every week I'll be posting new content, so tune in. All right, see you on the other side.